Coming up on today's show, WWE announces a Raw Women's Championship match for Backlash.
And then they immediately changed that match.
Mansoor's streak unceremoniously comes to an end.
Osprey and Shingo go 44 minutes this morning.
And a health scare greatly impacted New Japan's show this morning.
Hey Andrade, Kenny Omega's a real busy guy and you don't have any belts.
And Travis attempts the daily wrestling news show Gauntlet and more on this 90th episode of the Daily Wrestling News Show.
I don't know what that is.
This is the Daily Wrestling News for May 4th in 2021, and we are powered by the Eastern Observer. My name is Ryan Joyne. I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Bell Time Studio B on the beautiful shores of the Great Sacandaga Lake within the Empire State's Adirondack Park. I am joined today by Travis Severance. Travis, happy Star Wars Day.
May the 4th be with you as well, Ryan. Yesterday was a big day. It was Bullet Club Day, May 3rd, May 4th. We've got May the 4th be with you. Big Star Wars Day today, and then Revenge of the 6th is coming up as well. So, yeah, it's a pretty good day. Great weather. I'm glad you're not too far from where I am these days, so we'll be catching up soon.
Absolutely. So we do have a bunch of news to get into, and we might as well start with Monday Night Raw, and Al is requesting that we talk about Eva Marie first. So welcome back, Eva Marie. She made her debut with a video package last night, and I guess the Evolution is coming soon.
The Evolution apparently killed the Iconics, so...
In fairness, Eva Marie had been signed for like 6 months, and they just haven't done anything with her. But yeah, that's sort of the undercurrent that you're seeing a lot of blowback on now from the internet wrestling community, that we just had all these layoffs and now you're bringing Eva Marie in. So
yeah, probably now that they've built up Rhea, they needed a real good competitor for her. So Eva comes in and is going to take that spot after she takes care of business at Backlash. It makes perfect sense.
The other big stories, there's only a few stories really that came out of Raw last night, but Mansoor signed with Monday Night Raw. Prior to signing to Monday Night Raw, he had a 49-match winning streak. This was not mentioned, as far as I know, on the show last night at all. And he lost to Sheamus by disqualification with no mention of the streak whatsoever. So I guess he is not getting the Bill Goldberg Asuka treatment. I will not be creating a Mansoor award for trivia. It's just, that's it. He's gone.
That's rough. Yeah, he didn't even get sparklers or anything. There's no Womansoor a la Gilbert that's coming out. So poor guy.
So that's it for Mansoor. But welcome to Monday Night Raw. We'll see you soon, I guess. See what you're up to. And then some more news. Right before Raw went on the air, they announced a Raw Women's Championship match for WrestleMania Backlash. It's going to be Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. At least that's how it started. Once we got into the show, it was pretty quickly changed to Rhea Ripley versus Asuka versus Charlotte Flair. So I think coming off of the massive heat that Daniel Bryan got for wedging his way into the WrestleMania match, they said, well, let's see if we can use that same tactic again and see what happens.
Yeah, I do like the there's not a ton of stuff about Raw that I'm super interested in, but I do like the I do like to see the Sonya Deville character and how this is gonna impact things. That is an interesting angle to me for sure.
Yeah, the Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce are kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Sonya real apologetic all the time, but Adam Pearce is like, well, we should be talking about these things and making these decisions together. And she's like, I know, but it's last minute. So whatever. We'll see how that paces out. I don't think we're going to eventually get Sonya Deville versus Adam Pearce, but maybe they'll put each other in matches. That'll be Money in the Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin split up as a tag team. So that's the end of them on Raw last night.
Yep.
And aside from that, we did find out that next week we're getting preview of Backlash, we're getting Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley. That's coming off the other preview match we had last night, which was Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley. And otherwise, the only other thing I'll say about the show really is that we got Angel Garza in a match. We got Drew Gulak in a match. Humberto Carrillo is locked into a program with Sheamus as well as Mansoor. So starting to see a few talents get mixed in. I think it's the post WrestleMania. Let's dust these people off and see if we can get something going with them. So.
Yeah, I wish that they would have given him a little bit more time in that Gulak match to really see. Like, it's obvious that they're doing something with Garza with this whole situation that he's having with Nia. Like, it would have been nice to see him go longer than I'm not even sure how many minutes. Gulak got essentially no offense that entire match. So I think Garza's a great wrestler. I think he had a really good thing going before, and they kind of he got lost in the sauce with the Thea Trinidad stuff and the Andrade stuff. And, that was kind of cool when they were doing that. And then when he got moved over to Raw, I was like, I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. So, which is sadly the place where a lot of cruiserweights end up in Raw.
Yeah, it was a 2-minute match last night. And Garza won with the wing snapper or wing clipper, whatever he calls it. So that is that. Okay, today's history lesson. 40 years ago today is the anniversary of Pat Patterson and Sergeant Slaughter's alley fight. The match ended when the Grand Wizard tossed a towel in the ring on Slaughter's behalf because he was busted wide open. So 40 years ago today.
I thought it was the match for the Allie the Bunny from Butcher and the Blade. No.
She was not involved and may not have been born.
I don't think so.
I'm going to guess not. So, all right, some other top stories coming out of the last day. Kenny Omega responding to Andrade's challenge for the AAA Mega Championship by saying, I'm busy. Give me some time to think about it. So, I'm sure we're going to this match, but, there's got to be a lot of pop and circumstance behind Kenny's acceptance. So
it was very cool to see Andrade on that program. Obviously, he's not sitting back on his laurels. I think we'll see him pop up in a couple of different places. It was really cool to see him in AAA again.
Yeah, he has actually advertised in a few different places already. He did a signing recently. He's got this. Rush's new promotion that he's starting up. Andrade has been advertised for that. So he is going to be all over the place. So.
Yeah, and we might see like doses of him as La Sombra too. And I think I liked La Sombra a lot. So it'll be cool if he kind of does sort of the Leo Rush thing and maybe does some Blackheart stuff and does some La Sombra stuff, and we see kind of two versions of him. And I think it's 1,000 times more interesting when a character's got two different ways that they can go as far as that goes and show up and be one or the other. It keeps it interesting for whoever's booking him in there. And he's in great shape. Like the guy can go.
Yeah. It's actually a great match. Kenny Omega versus Andrade, specifically in Mexico, I think is a great match. And it's on their biggest show. It is their WrestleMania. They're bound for glory. They're double or nothing, whatever you want to say. Yep. It's their big show.
Yeah, it's certainly set up in a way where Kenny's title is at risk, and he's had that belt for a long time.
Yep. His last defense was against Laredo Kid back in December. And he won. So obviously he still got the belt. So okay, so this morning Osprey retained the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship in a 44-minute match against Shingo Takagi. Heck of a match. They stole all the stars, probably. There's a shortage in wrestling.
Yeah. It was a banger. Some really interesting table spots and stuff. When you see 44 minutes long, there's a lot going on in the match. Osprey finishes him off with essentially 3 finishers. He hits a Rainmaker, a Hidden Blade, and then into the Stormbreaker. Back to back to back. Takagi left laying. Man, has he had, for a guy who's lost a whole bunch of times, he's had some insane matches this year alone. Like his Tanahashi match was really good. It's been a great year for Takagi, even on the losing side of everything.
He was that never champion like all year last year. Had some great matches with Minoru Suzuki. There's nothing bad to say about Shingo Takagi.
Yeah, his Jeff Cobb match in the Cup was crazy too as well. So like he's had 12 months of really really insane matches with, other than the never belt when, not a lot of wins. And I'm starting to feel United Empire a little bit. I was a little worried. They brought in Aaron Henare, and I'm like, man, that wasn't the explosive addition that I thought, but I think he's coming into his own. And United Empire, it's interesting to see a lot of guys kind of in the same spot in their careers, getting to sort of feed off of each other as a group a little bit. So whether that was Will's pick for those guys, or it was Gato, or some combination of the two of them, good job, great pairing. Like the faction is coming into its own now.
Hinare is a lot better off now than he was before. He was kind of characterless. I mean,
Yep.
he's a New Zealand guy, and he was kind of playing off of that background. But otherwise, he really didn't have anything going for himself. Now he's really cool. He's got the shades. He's in the Empire. He's
good looking dude, right? Like
yep.
you've got some good sized guys that can wrestle and stuff like that. I think they would be it'll be interesting to me if we see him go after the Never Three.
Sure.
I think they would be cool to have those belts for sure. And Will's obviously look great.
Now you brought up the tables with this match with Osprey and Shingo, and you don't often see tables in New Japan. It's kind of a rare occurrence, but in this match, it was probably about halfway through. Shingo Takagi hit Made in Japan, his finisher, off of the apron through 2 tables. Will Ospreay just barely beat the 20 count into the ring. He gets in the ring. Shingo immediately hits Made in Japan again in the middle of the ring, and Ospreay kicks out at 2. So massive false finish. The 2 of them, really, because in Japan, your title's changing hands if you get counted out of the ring.
Absolutely. And that happens, and we see it. And like, these aren't these American particle board tables either. In Japan, if you haven't seen their tables, they're well constructed, short, thin tables with a lot of metal. And when you go through 2 of them with Made in Japan, it was a brutal spot. And then the other interesting spot that's kind of minor, but if you go back and you get a chance to take a look at it, there's a spot where Will Ospreay's pinning Takagi. And instead of him having his arm or a leg on the ropes, he had his arm outside of the field of the ring, and Red Shoes called it, stop the count. So it's nice to see them call back to a rule that you don't see utilized a lot of times, to say, okay, yep, he's broken the plane with his arm. He's essentially out of bounds,
right?
And they stopped the count. So a cool little small spot. New Japan does a good job of weaving that sort of stuff in, and just a nice thing to see where Red Shoes as a great official called it immediately, and they moved on with the match.
Now, the other news coming out of the show this morning is that they had a health scare, and there were, they're doing back-to-back shows. They did a show yesterday, and there was a 6-man tag match. It was Okada, Sho, and Yo versus Desperado, Kanemaru, and Suzuki. Well, one of those guys came down with a fever and wasn't looking good, and he's putting them through testing and everything like that. They pulled all 6 guys from this card, changed up a whole bunch of matches, including Yo was supposed to fight El Desperado for the IWGP Junior Championship as the semi-main event. That match got pulled. So in the end, after Ospreay wins and conquers Takagi, he gets on the microphone and says, New Japan leans too much on Will Ospreay. Card subject to change. You got your money's worth just by seeing me wrestle alone. We sold out this place when my match was the only one announced, and onward and upward. So Ospreay used that sort of the angle, which was kind of a nice thing. But you see New Japan being really careful with, being very health conscious for their shows.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's definitely part of the reason why we saw the 45-minute banger today, because they had to cut a match, so they had to fill it in. And luckily they had 2 guys, not that they don't have a lot of talent in the locker room that can go that long. But it just, it definitely heightened the match in general. And yeah, he used that to platform off it. And, they had set this up before this match, but it looks like Ospreay's on his way to Okada next.
Yeah. That's the Tokyo Dome match.
Tokyo Dome match for Grand Slam or Wrestle Slam or whatever they're calling it.
Yep. End of the month. That's where we're going, assuming that Tokyo is out of lockdown and that they can hold events and stuff like that. So, and they could do it with no fans, but that doesn't sound like a very wise thing to do. So, The other news coming out of New Japan, I talked about it with Al Carl yesterday. It was late breaking right before the show. The match concluded, but Jay White won the Never Championship. Also, another long match, 39 minutes that match went. So back-to-back days with really long matches to close out the shows.
That's why I'm running with my Jay White King Switch shirt on today. I didn't want to put my United Empire shirt on because I think some of the folks maybe do the same as I do on different times and don't have a chance to watch it. So I didn't want this image to be up on our video for them to know that my United Kingdom or my Kingpin Will Ospreay shirt won. So yeah, big ups to Jay. Quad champion, the only one to ever do that. He's one of 6 men to ever hold the US belt. He's one of only 15 to ever hold the IC belt too. So he's in really small company. And he did make a mention to belt collectors knowing where he is.
Yes.
His career-wise, he's 1-1 versus Omega, and his one win is for a belt when he won the U.S. title. So Jay, although he looks like he called out former partner of his, David Finlay, and it looks like that's where we're headed next for the open weight. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, he specifically called out Finlay and Taguchi.
Right.
So, it makes sense. Taguchi is the 69th ever IWGP Junior Champion, so he wears the 69 proudly on his pants or whatever. But so it looks like Jay is setting himself up to wrestle those two guys and then planting a little seed because it gets all our attention and sets the internet on fire when he mentions belt collecting. So,
absolutely.
But we know Kenny Omega needs a Japanese belt in his profile to make it really, to have global domination. He needs a Japanese belt. Don't matter which one. It can even be the U.S. version of Japan's belt, but he needs a belt.
Yeah, and we'll see who's going to hold that belt in about a week, 8 days.
Nagata versus
Moxley coming up May 12th
on Dynamite.
On Dynamite,
Nagata-san. All right, well. Fightful Select confirmed Dave Meltzer's report that WWE and MLW are forming a working relationship, and it's being discussed at the highest level, although they do say that many in NXT were surprised to find out the news when Dave reported it. So not everybody knows what's going on, I guess, but they are discussing at the highest levels. So no more news other than that, but it should be great to see those companies work together, I think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely great for MLW. I'm still waiting to see how it looks and what it puts together for WWE and what they actually end up getting out of this, other than what was discussed on the internet, which is kind of an exhaust port for this overabundance of talent that they don't have getting exposed anywhere else. So,
well, Court Bauer said that when they come back July 10th, it's going to be reloaded rosters.
Yep.
And I will tell you, they have their regular Fusion show every Tuesday. Plus, they now have a deal with Vice, and they have a deal with his own. So they've got a lot of programming that they're going to need to do. So it could be that they need more talent to kind of work in to fill out the cards some, but we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic that it'll be good for both, and then we'll probably get some MLW on the WWE network as well. Court's always looking for some place to put his product, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, Fightful Select reports that Kip Sabian is indeed on the shelf. He needs surgery, and the Miro attack will be used to explain that. So there you go. And here's a MMA story that we don't typically do MMA, but may it be a word of caution to those of you that pirate. Triller is going after individuals who illegally streamed their 417 show. The lawsuit will be for $150,000 per illegal stream, but they are giving people until 6/1 to pay the cost of the show, and then after that, anyone that pays the cost of the show will be removed from the lawsuit. But if you don't pay that up, they've got your VPN, they've got your IP address, so they're going to be coming after you. So, word to the wise if you're into pirating certain events, whether they be wrestling or MMA. So,
yeah, buy the product, guys.
Buy the product. Yep. Okay, Travis, some lineups for this week. We have NXT tonight. We have a tag team title match, Ember Moon and Schatzy Blackheart versus Candace LeRae and Indy Hartwell. Looking at the numbers back at this one, Candace LeRae and Indy Hartwell, they have a kind of a lopsided record, and all of their losses, I think there's 3 of them, were to Ember Moon and Schatzy Blackheart. So, Al Carl always says it's hard to lose the same team 3 times in the same season, jokingly, but these guys have already proven that. We'll see if they can lose a 4th time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see them dropping the titles here. So yeah, good luck to Candace and Indy.
And then Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Leon Ruff in a Falls Count Anywhere match. This should be fun. Hopefully these guys destroy each other, and we have a good interesting finish somewheres in the building. Like see some other parts of the building or whatever. And
yeah, two wrestlers that I enjoy watching for sure. I think they're great performers.
It's nice to see them get a feature.
It's good to see them get a feature. Since Damien left, Leon kind of hasn't gotten. It's kind of just been languishing there and stuff like that. And Isaiah Scott is somebody that I thought, man, when they brought him in initially, I'm like, man, this is a good guy that can really do some damage there. And then like he's kind of not had much going on either. So yeah, this should be good. We might Falls Count Anywhere means that we might see some random interference that happens just somewheres in one of the rooms or whatever to maybe continue this thing. So it's probably not just like a one and done. I think we're going to see a little bit more from these two, which is good.
John DeConnie and I were talking last week about they used to have only did it a couple of times, but the most notable example is in WrestleMania 10. They had Macho Man Randy Savage versus Crush in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and the concept was you would pin the guy somewheres outside the ring, and then they had 60 seconds to get back to the ring, and then it would be and that's how the finish would happen. That's not what they're doing here, but it would be kind of a fun swerve to put on that style of match. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then on Dynamite tomorrow night, Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa versus Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. How do you think Nakazawa will take the pin here?
Not as oiled up. Maybe he gets hit over the head with a laptop or something. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe we see Nagata do something in this thing too, to kind of get him talking about, next week.
Sure.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a Michael Nakazawa loss for sure. Yep, we got him inserted into that match properly. I think we missed the Ciampa Thatcher versus GYV.
We did, yes. Yep, they did announce that match. That should be great.
Match as well. Yeah,
yep.
Those 4 are great. So yeah, there's going to be shenanigans in this match for sure. We know there's not going to be a DQ because I think they've only had 2 in the history of AEW ever. But yeah, Michael. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, when one of those DQs was in an Iron Man match, just to prove that they could do it. So, sorry, Pac.
Whoops.
So, and then Dr. Britt Baker, she'll be in action to extend her winning streak. I'm sure they haven't announced who her in-action opponent will be yet. So
yeah, and I think that's the only women's match on the card announced thus far. I was surprised that we didn't see anything else.
Well, Blood and Guts is going to take up a lot of time.
Yeah, so. It is. Yep.
Yeah. SCU versus Jurassic Express versus Varsity Blondes versus the Acclaimed.
In the tag team eliminator match that we're just eliminating tag teams to get to a tag team.
Pretty sure SCU will win since they can't lose, otherwise they have to break up. And we just had that fiery promo from Daniels and Kazarian last week. So
far it's feeling a little chalky here on AEW.
Yeah. Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. I don't know if it matters. I think that there's going to be some interference from Nick Camarado and those guys. This whole situation, this Nightmare family versus the Factory, I maintain that it's got very little to do with Cody and QT and Dustin and Billy Gunn. And it's all about the Gun Club, Aaron Solo, Lee Johnson, Nick Camarado. So it's just what's going to spin out of here that they can play off of, in my estimation.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. If it was anything else other than that, I'm surprised that they went to this match immediately, right? Like this feels like you do your big build and like you had the whole attack that happened and then you had the comeback and whatever. I was kind of surprised they put it on this show because I thought it would be a higher profile match or there'd be some stipulations to it. And that's probably where we're going. And this is probably just going to turn into another scrum mess.
Yep.
And somebody will get a win somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Cody, right? I mean, hard to believe that QT will pin Cody in a kind of clean fashion for sure, but
yeah.
But then Blood and Guts, I don't think this is so easy to pick. I don't think this. I mean, and we'll pick. Everybody will log their picks on the Essential Wrestling podcast tonight. But Travis, you won't be on there, so
I will
You got a
not.
feeling about this?
It is really, really tough to call this. I don't know where this is obviously not the end of this thing, even though it feels like it is. But the challenge to this is like the other times before where we saw this kind of faction build up, we had some altercations and some nonsense that happened, but like War Games was always the blow off to it, and we're moving on to the next program. And this, it feels like we're kind of in the middle. Like it doesn't feel like I don't think that this is okay. One faction goes away, they lick
This
their
is the
wounds,
beginning.
the other faction's the champions or whatever. The inner circle's already established. Pinnacle is the new kids. I think the loss makes inner circle have to reassess and sort of circle the wagons, and Pinnacle gets to be the big dominant young bucks, the new guys, the whatever. So I think it makes more sense to me to have Pinnacle win. I also don't like the idea of MJF losing. He doesn't obviously have to take the pin. Somebody else could take the pin, but whoever takes the pin in this match,
No
if it's
pins.
on the if it's on
Submission or surrender.
or submission or surrender, whoever does that, if they're on the Pinnacle, really hurts their character, and I don't think that happens for Inner Circle. But also the Inner Circle guys, regardless of what they said, Santana and Ortiz have done essentially nothing since they've come over from Impact. They've done nothing. They've got very few wins. They've got very few title matches. They've just not done anything. You got Jake Hager, who's kind of been the missing man. He lost to Wardlow. He beat Dustin Rhodes. Like he doesn't have a ton of victories. Sammy Guevara, this is the first time we're seeing him in a ring since
Long time.
I don't know, January or February. It is a rough match to call, and the reason why it's a rough match to call is AEW writes good shit, and because they write good shit, there's a lot of different ways that this thing can go, and you can't just call it one way and pretend it's going to be one way. We could have somebody show up during this match. Something crazy could happen as well.
You could have a turn.
100%. You could have all kinds of nonsense that happen. So I wouldn't want to have to call this thing for points. If I had to, my heart says my heart and Pinnacle says Pinnacle, and I think because they're going to try to elevate them a little bit more, a loss here to Inner Circle really puts them in a weird spot. But then again, I've just had to live through this with my United Empire as well, taking some real savage beatings in the beginning until they kind of establish themselves.
I think the way you set this up, though, this is not the end. This is not the blow off. And then Jericho has talked about this. MJF has talked about this. Santana and Ortiz, they've all done media over the last week, and they've talked about how, even Sean Spears, that this is just starting point. And it's weird because this is typically a blow off, but you haven't seen any of these guys wrestling each other in singles competition or tag team or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here and how this story plays out, because we know it's the beginning and not the end.
Yeah, this is a cool match to see. What I would have loved to seen, and it would take up the whole show. Let me see singles and doubles pair offs of everybody, right? Let me go MJF and Jericho in a main event. Let me see, Hager and Wardlow. Let me see Sammy versus Shawn. Let me see the two tag teams versus each other, one after another. And
yeah,
that's 5 great
maybe that's
matches,
where we go.
or 4 great matches. And yeah, maybe that's what we see. And we see like, whoever wins 3 out of 2 is the real champions or whatever. So there's a lot of things they can do with here. It's super interesting. I'm excited to see it. I wish we were live to see the first one, but
wish we were live for this one, but just so happens we booked this 2 seconds after I leave Florida for the summer.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Beating.
So, but that is life, and we will watch it on television. So
sure.
MLW tomorrow night. That's your Dynamite pre-show. They are doing their last show of the current season. Myron Reed versus Leo Rush, amongst some other matches. But when this is done, we're done with MLW until July. When fans come back, MLW has contracts, as mentioned, with the Zone and Vice and others to fulfill. So I expect a whole lot more content. And ultimately, I believe the build will still continue to be Hammerstone and Fatu at some point in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. I hope that we see like a complete overhaul. I hope they use this time to, give me a complete scrubbing of the website. Let's do a fresh look and a fresh take on everything, and let's bring the brand back with a lot of pop. Like this in between stuff has been good, but not great. And they're much better with a live audience for sure.
Yeah, this is a no fan era, and it's very interesting. So we'll see what happens when they have the opportunity to bring fans back. So.
Yeah.
All right, Travis, it's that time. Play the little bumper here. You looked a little confused during the cold open of the show, like you didn't know necessarily what the Daily Wrestling News Show Gauntlet is. Well, I will tell you now. Only one person is getting a point this week. It might be you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the name of a show. And you have to start naming wrestlers that wrestled in matches on that show. And you're going to go until you give me a wrong answer. Whatever number of wrestlers that you mention will be your score, and we'll compare it. Whoever has the highest score at the end of the week is going to get their point for the week. Yesterday, Al Carl had Backlash 2020, and he scored 3 points. So here is that standing. You can see Al with 3 points. You are at 0 right now. So you have to get more than 3 to take the lead for the week, and then you should get a little insurance to beat John DeConnie and John Smith later in the week. Do you understand the rules?
I do.
Okay. The show is the Horror Show at Extreme Rules 2020.
The Horror Show at Extreme Rules 2020.
Yeah. Usually it's just Extreme Rules, but in 2020 we called it the Horror Show at Extreme Rules.
And this is a WWE show?
This is a WWE show.
Is it NXT or main roster?
It is main roster.
Based
on those questions, you are in rough shape.
Let's go Bray Wyatt.
1 point.
Braun Strowman.
2 points.
Seth Rollins.
3 points.
Randy Orton.
No Randy Orton. Believe it or not. Here is the lineup. So you got 3 points. That's pretty good. You've tied out.
3 points. There was like 14 people on the show or whatever.
Yeah, you had Seth Rollins. I thought you'd get the Seth Rollins match. It's the Horror Show. Eye for an eye.
Oh.
So
how could I have forgotten? Horror Show was the perfect name.
Yes. So the pre-show, Kevin Owens versus Murphy. The first match on the show, Cesaro and Nakamura versus the New Day, which was Big E and Kofi. Bayley defeated Nikki Cross. Seth Rollins defeated Rey Mysterio. Asuka versus Sasha Banks ended in a no contest. Drew McIntyre defeated Dolph Ziggler. And Bray Wyatt defeated Braun Strowman in the Wyatt Swamp match. So, 3 points. If you guys all score 3 points, it's going to make it very hard on me. I guess I will either credit you all a point or give you none. So,
perfect.
We're at 3. Okay. Fun times. I guess I better do this with WrestleManias.
Oh, no, this was fine.
So, all right, Travis, let's go through. I'll come back and we'll talk about some other stuff after the break here, but I want to tell some people about some stuff like a new month, a new shirt. Let's talk about the Crucifix shirt. It's the same deal though. $20 includes the shipping. It's any size you want. It's $20. It comes in the super soft style. I like this shirt, the Crucifix. This is how just about every match on Monday Night Raw ends these days, with the Crucifix roll-up or some other kind of roll-up. So you can go get it at bodyslamclothes.com for $20 right now. And then you can listen to the Primetime Rundown each and every Friday. Join Joey Jarzenka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports. The show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then we have the Essential Wrestling Podcast every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We're going with episode 52 tonight. Al Carl, who has been in the comments throughout this show, will be on the show as the host. I will be there along with John DeConnie and Gary Mahaffey and John Smith. It's another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. We're going to make all the picks for the week's matches. We'll break down Blood and Guts in the main event segment, and coverage begins at 6 p.m. this Tuesday. That's tonight on the Eastern Observer. And then our show, the Daily Wrestling News Show, returns tomorrow and Thursday and Friday this week with shows covering everything in wrestling, all the news of the day, plus in-depth interviews with guests. So do tune in every day at 10 a.m. wherever you're watching this show right now. Also, note, if you're watching this show and you'd like to listen to this show on the way home from work, go ahead and subscribe to that show, to the Daily Wrestling News Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever. You can get the audio version, listen to it at your leisure. It's a great way to consume the show. So with that, Travis, anything else going on this week?
So New Japan Strong doesn't have anything listed right now, which is curious to me.
No, they
Maybe
do.
this health thing kind of set back their timing and stuff.
John Moxley and Chris Dickinson versus Eugene Agata and Ren Narita this Friday.
Oh, well, I guess that's a pretty big match that I couldn't find in their news section. I know the last week the match ended with Clark Connors getting defeated by Carl Fredericks, to which they said Clark Connors is no longer a young lion. So I guess we're going to see a repackaged, maybe a new Clark Connors with a new look and not those black tights normally. So, but yeah, that tag team match sounds great. I'm excited. I'm
Big
not sure where
for Dynamite the next.
I'm not sure where you dug that up from, because it's not in their New Japan schedule. The whole thing is just filled with stuff. So
I'll send you the link after the show.
Great. Sounds good.
John DeCani chiming in. He would have gotten 2 on the Extreme Rules. Definitely the eye for eye.
Yeah, it certainly gave Scott D'Amore and Impact plenty of comedy the last couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
All back to that lovely match where the eye magically healed.
Mm-hmm. Even I believe everywhere that week they were every company was doing eye for eye references, and I even had I wrote something in the Body Slam Brigade newsletter that everybody was stealing Rey Mysterio's thunder, and I got one guy that responded back to me and like tore me down, like, what thunder of Rey Mysterio's? He's a Hall of Famer, the whole troll thing. I got that back at one day, but
take it a little too serious.
Yeah, a little too serious. It was sarcasm.
Yes.
So at its finest. I learned my lesson. Sarcasm doesn't come through in print. So
I know you need italics font or something like that to designate it. I'm still waiting for Zuckerberg to let me do that on Facebook so that people understand. But just if I lead with the fact that I'm sarcastic all the time, just assume that it's sarcasm.
Yeah, Sark mark. That's what we need. The Sark
exactly.
Mark. All right. Well, with that being said, that's been our show. Thanks everybody for watching. For Travis, I'm Ryan. We will see you tomorrow.